This video is sponsored by my tongue. It hurts. Hey guys, your captain is back.
Hey Reboom, I'm loving that trip to San Francisco, but you sure it's gonna be enough time to plan everything we want to do during the day? Last time we tried this, we got stuck somewhere in Arizona, then in Oregon for a whole day.
I remind you that it was your fault. It would have never happened if you didn't try to do a trick off a ramp like in Mario Kart Wii with the car.
I know, blame it on the guy I called. How could I have known that he was a bad car reparator?
I guess I better start the video. So as you know, I'm a huge Mario fan. I've been playing games like Super Mario Bros., Mario Kart, and Mario Party ever since I was like 4. But what you may not know is that I also really enjoy Sonic games. My first ever Sonic game was Sonic Lost World on the 3DS when I was 7 years old.
I mean, what image do you give yourself to Sonic fans when you start with the unpopular version of an already polarizing game?
Then from there, I started playing other Sonic games, and I am currently loving Sonic Racing Crosswords on the PlayStation 5. But my favorite Sonic games among the ones I played has always been Sonic Adventure 2. Its particularity is that it has two stories, one from the hero side with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and one from the villain side with Eggman and two new characters, Shadow the Hedgehog and Rouge the Bat. Every story has 3 characters, and each one goes through 3 respective types of stages that have the same 3 game styles in both stories, just with different levels. Sonic and Shadow go through platforming stages focused on speed, Tails and Eggman have stages when they are in giant robots and must shoot enemies in a third-person shooter-style minigame, and finally, Knuckles and Rouge have stages where they must search for 3 treasures that are scattered across the level, which in most versions of their levels would be selected randomly among the panel of 60 possible locations every time you play them. Now, Sonic Adventure 2 is not as nostalgic for me as, say, Mario Kart Wii, Mario Party 8, Wii Sports Resort, Nintendo Land, or even Sonic Lost World, but it's a game that I really love, and I've been wanting and trying to make a video about this game ever since I started this channel. And I believe that now is finally the time to turn this into reality. So before starting, let's set up some ground rules. I'll be ranking every level in the actual story mode, so no multiplayer levels from the battle ports and no boss battles. Finally, I won't be ranking Green Hill Zone, as this would already make it way too long to get this video out, as this requires getting all 180 ambience in this game, and I don't really feel like doing this just to add one entry into this ranking. However, based on footage I've seen from the stage, I'll give my opinion on what I've seen from it. It seems like a cool reward after getting every emblem, and honestly, a better reward for 100%ing a game than most games that I played.
You can get to Super Mario Odyssey.
When you take into account the fact that Sonic Adventure 2 was made in the mindset that this game could have been the last one, and that it's kind of Sega's goodbye as a console creator, it even makes this extra stage a bit poetic. I also like how they deliberately made this level even more open in terms of gameplay, as this seemed to allow you to do some speedrun tricks to complete the level very quickly, just like in classic Sonic games on the Mega Drive. Though the graphics in this level are kind of shit, even for the standards of a game with that already kind of age like milk in these regards. I'll be putting each level in a tier, from F tier all the way to S tier, with F tier being the lowest tier and S tier being the highest one. If you're curious, I'd probably put Green Hill in B tier if I was ranking it. Oh, and I must precise that I always played this game on the GameCube version if you wonder, and it's also the version I played when playing the game for this video, so no mods for those who wonder, even though I would still not take them into account in this ranking even if I had a version that can use mods. Now that all the ground rules are clear, let's start with the F tier, which is for the levels that I actually hate, and that I'd rather avoid most of the time that I play this game.
Ridiculous! Utterly ridiculous!
Ugh, to be honest, this wasn't even a contest. Going into this game, I knew that the two kart racing stages in the game would both be at the bottom of this list. I get that they were made to add some variety to the speed shoot treasure hunting group, but I don't think anybody would have missed those stages if they didn't exist. First, the controls are miles below any actual racing game, be it Mario Kart, Diddy Kong Racing, or Sonic Racing Crossroads. You can barely actually drift, and this results in you hitting the walls constantly if you don't slow down constantly, making the fourth mission in this stage a nightmare. Plus, they aren't even interesting. Not only are they way too easy, but their theme isn't even appealing. It's just a repetitive road that's floating above the sea with occasional tunnels. And even worse, due to the fact that they're just kart racers, there is not even a smidge of replay value that these levels have after you completed all the missions on them with an A rank. And it's pretty easy to complete them with an A rank, except for mission 4. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that even circuit tracks in Mario Kart have more inspired theme than this.
At least one had a reason to say Torch Circuit Baby if they only had this as a Mario Kart experience before Mario Kart 7.
Route 101 is easily the worst of the two stages, because since you can't fall off, the timer is the only hazard here, but it's so forgiving that I forget that it's here most of the time. I honestly think it would have been better to just remove the kart racers and instead, for Route 101, put a Sonic level to fill in the long gap between Rainforest and Pyramid Cave, while swapping Meteor Herd and Eternal Engine and removing crazy gadgets. I don't know, maybe have that Sonic level take place in a marine resort or a snow mountain. All of this to say, Route 101 sucks, and I'm sure that if Sonic Adventure 2 was remade and this level was removed from the game, people wouldn't even notice.
Asleep at the wheel, Amy?
Yeah, there's not much to say about that one either. It's a kart racing level using the same ass bridge that crosses the same ass MTC with the same ass shitty controls. The only thing that makes it higher than Route 101 is that there are parts without guardrails on the road. As such, there is a bit of challenge in this stage, as even though the timer is way too generous to actually increase the difficulty, you still have to watch out not to fall off. But even with this level is boring, ugly, and practically has nothing of value outside of the cool music. Honestly, I wonder why Sega made driving stages a dog when they could have used this time on 5th Shadow stage, as right now, my boy has been done dirty by the developers. He already has 4 levels only, even though he's the main focus on the dog story. How hard would it have been to give him like a speed stage in Aquatic Mine, Wild Canyon, or even Pyramid Cave? A shadow level with this premise would have slayed. Really, just do anything else than this shit. I really think these levels were only made because they felt like the dog story was too short and they wanted to add some filler. But honestly, I think everyone, regardless of which story they prefer, wouldn't give a shit if these levels were removed from the game when you take into account what we could have gotten instead.
Maybe she's not alive, but she's here anyway, if you know what I mean!
Aquatic Mine! Honestly, if you're a fan of this level, consider yourself lucky that I waited 2 years and a half to make this video. Because honestly, if I made it at the start of my channel, this level would have been dead last and probably in G tier or something. Seriously, even after all this time, this stage still gives me a bitter taste in my mouth. Before I talk about what specifically made this level so bad for me, let's talk about its more general gameplay. Aquatic Mine is the third treasure hunting stage in the hero story, and the 8th level in general, meaning you control Knuckles here. You are in an abandoned, flooded mine, and you have to find 3 pieces of the Master Emerald, as it got shattered at the start of the game. There's a big, vertical rectangle-shaped room in the middle of the mine that says like a hub, a narrow corridor linking the low story and the middle story of the big room, and a square room above it. Much of the mine can be affected by the main gimmick of this level, which is the water level. Across the stage, there are several switches that you can use to make the level of the water fall or rise, which allows you to access areas you couldn't access otherwise.
Remember, kids, drink water.
So what is the problem, you may ask? Well, this gimmick is simply put, useless. The reason is simple. When Knuckles is in the water, his moveset is very limited, and he also moves way more slowly. As a result, unless a piece of the Master Emerald is in a room that can only be accessed by swimming, your best interest is just putting the water level as the lowest, making the main gimmick of this level irrelevant in most playthroughs. And when you do have to make the water level rise, you can lose a good amount of time, which, when most treasure hunting levels expect you to complete in them in less than 3 minutes to get a good rank, can become very problematic. Even navigating the level is annoying because of those small corridors and places you can't access without changing the water level. But what's especially awful in this level
Oh boy, here it comes.
is clearly the ghosts. Oh my fucking gosh, do I hate those ghosts. Basically, in this game, there are those ghosts that are probably inspired from the boos of Mario that already look fucking cursed. But how would you react if I told you that they jump scare you?
I would not care that much personally. It's been a long time since I haven't cared for Sonic Adventure 2.
Yep, you heard me right. Some ghosts are hidden in several objects in the game, like tombstones, barrels, or even literally nothing. When you approach the zone where they hide, they jump out at you just to scare you. And sure, there are some ghosts like this that you can see beforehand in form of tiny ghosts, but most of them are just invisible until you walk in the jump scare zone. I cannot stress enough how much those ghosts scared me and pissed me off when I was younger. In fact, they still do. There's a real room that is full of ghosts that jump scare you in the most bullshit places, and if you search for an emerald piece here, it's practically impossible to not get jump scared. As a result, for the longest time, whenever a piece was hidden here, I would just restart. In fact, due to these ghosts and how much these jump scares scared me, I spent 1 year stuck on this level. And in fact, due to how much I complained about it, my parents ended up taking this game away for a whole month, and it took me way too much time and good grades at school to get it back. Just for this, I cannot place this level higher than the F tier. Honestly, if you're a fan of this level, just be happy that I still put it above the 2 kart racing stages, because I could have very well put it dead last in the G tier only 2 years ago, solely due to that memory. I need to drink water after this. That's better. Moving on.
Yay, gravity!
Yeah, I don't think seeing this stage in F tier was a surprise for any of you. It's easily the most infamous stage in the game. Oftentimes, when I watch videos ranking every level in the game, Mad Space often scores dead last, and it's really not hard to see why. 6 years before Super Mario Galaxy showed how to incorporate gravity in a platformer in a way that worked, Sonic Adventure 2 did try to incorporate it in Mad Space, the 12th level of the Dog Story, and Rouge's 4th and final level, not counting Route 280. And let's just say it would have been better to wait until Nintendo shows how to do it for this one. Because this level is the epitome of what's not to do when designing a treasure hunting stage. I mean, every time a Sonic fan sees somebody praising a Mario game, they say Sonic does it way better. What's your excuse to say this is better than Mario Galaxy? First, Mad Space is way too big. It already has 3 planets that are pretty big, but they add several platforms that are very far from each other, and a giant building that takes way too long to climb. Because of this, it's already hell to search for emerald pieces, because you may have to check in literally all the areas of the level before the radar finally starts beeping. The problem with this level is that unlike the radar from Sonic Adventure 1 that searches for any emerald piece you approach, Sonic Adventure 2's radar can only search for one of them at a time, meaning you'll most likely miss out on an emerald piece that the radar isn't actively searching for when going near it.
Wait, I have an idea.
And we're back to Hana Rujana on Disney Channel. Oh fuck, I can't find the second emerald piece. Rouge, you aren't searching very well. It's right behind me, isn't it? And if this was the only problem this level has, it would be cool. But no! In the treasure hunting stages of Sonic Adventure 2, there are those floating computers that appear in various places in the level. If you try to read what's on them, they give you a hint to where the emerald piece the radar is searching for is. But there are two problems with the hints in this level. First, some of the hints are so cryptic that they are just not even helpful, even though this is not the only level with this problem. Like, what is this hint gonna help you with? Then, the hints in this level are reversed. That means that if they will either be written in reverse or say the opposite of what they mean. For example, if a hint says a big platform and it's not written in reverse, you should look for a small platform. This is just unnecessarily making the level more complex than it already is, and given its other problems, we could have easily done without this gimmick. Then, some of these emerald pieces are placed in really shitty spots. Look at this one. To get the emerald piece, you have to fly from a platform that's at the right distance from a moon with a flat top, then go under it. How the fuck is anyone supposed to understand that and see the emerald piece? For some emerald piece, I can spend 5 to 10 minutes searching just one of them, which is just way too long and tedious when you expect the level from this game to last about 3 minutes, 4 at the very maximum. And worse, the level doesn't even work functionally. It uses the concept of gravity, but you can't even go upside down on planets, making this whole gimmick just eye-powered. When you try, the game would forcefully take you back to the upper path of the planet. But however, there are many emerald pieces that are placed on the part that separate the lower and upper parts of the planet. Due to this, when you try to approach it, Rouge just turns to the left or the right to meet the emerald piece. Like, stop going to the right each time I try to go straight to get the emerald piece. What, you little perfume ad! When you mix all of those points together, this turns searching the emerald pieces in this level into a nightmare. Honestly, this is the kind of level that you get stuck at for way too long when you finally manage to complete it, you just never play it again until you start to want to complete the game at 100%. I feel like they tried to mark the occasion for Rouge's final level by making its stage that harder than any other treasure hunting level, also bearing in mind that it seems that from what I've seen, the Dark story strives to be harder than the Hero story. But honestly, they just turned Mad Space into a tedious mess of a level. I'm not surprised at all that this stage is so hated. But at least, we're out of the F tier. The next tier is the D tier. These are levels that I already consider not horrible and that have some redeeming qualities. However, I still consider them bad.
Wait, do you really think that young people still play golf or sports outside? Dude, come on.
Have you ever heard of digital fatigue, Rookie?
I think there's something more important going on.
Ugh. Who thought it would be a good idea to build a golf course in the same place where bisons roam?
Hey, look, you should thank them. They made us do a hole-in-one.
How'd I get into outer space? Oh well.
Eternal Engine is the 13th level in the Hero story and also Tails' 4th and final stage, not counting Route 101, even though you of course play a boss battle against Eggman a bit later. And to me, it's easily the worst mech shooting level in the whole game, and for obvious reasons. In a way, you can almost consider it the Mad Space of mech shooting levels in the way that the developers probably wanted to make the level very hard at the final mech shooting stage of the hero story so it feels more special, but by doing so, they made the level more frustrating than fun, as they thought that because the level is hard, they can put anything in it and it will feel fair, which is obviously not as simple. Where do I even start? First of all, the level is way too long for what it is. Generally, for Sonic Adventure 2 level, the ideal length is, in my books, between 2 minutes 30 and 3 minutes 30. Here, you will almost certainly reach 4 minutes just going through this level, and if you try to get a better score by killing all the enemies or exploring other areas, you can easily add up to 5 or even 6 minutes, which is way too long for a mech shooting level that isn't even that varied. Honestly, it quickly became redundant, and by the 3 minute mark, I was honestly ready to stop here.
Hey Sonic Adventure 2, if you want to copy Mario Kart, you might want to ignore the worst tracks and focus on the good ones instead.
What doesn't help is that it's easily the most frustrating mech shooting stage in the game and one of the most frustrating levels overall. This is due to two things. First, the main gimmick of the level. You might notice those dynamite packs attached to the ground or the walls. If you shoot them, a small part of the ground or walls will be destroyed, and the hole it makes will suck you out of the spaceship into the void if you are not careful. The problem with that is that oftentimes, with the way the lock-on mechanic works, you will almost certainly end up having to shoot the ground even without intending to do so when trying to shoot robots, and when this happens, it turns into a nightmare where you have to be absurdly slow to not be sucked into the void. I remind you, this is a Sonic game! You see, in the levels that take place inside the Space Colony arc, there are those doors that don't open unless you get near them. Since they aren't transparent, you will have to approach them to see what awaits you in the next room. The problem with this is that Eternal Engine just has an obsession with placing enemies that didn't give you time to react in the entrance of those rooms, like those artificial chaos that will use their water tentacles to attack you as soon as the door opens before you can even react. Seriously, those tentacles are almost just as annoying as the ghosts, with their ability to attack from absurdly far away places with them, and Eternal Engine is probably the levels where they are used as the absolute worst. Combined with the long length of the level and the dynamite gimmick, this makes air ranking this stage a nightmare. Overall, Eternal Engine is just another one of these levels that think making a level hard and frustrating automatically makes it a good endgame level, and it really shows when everything feels unfair and you just keep hearing Tails yelling and taking damage.
My power's failing!
Honestly, the only reason why it avoids the F tier is that there are some parts of the level where the dynamic pack gimmick is actually used well, and the music is really amazing. Seriously, it's one of my favorite tunes in the whole game.
Oh, and you can do a JoJo reference with Omochao. It's still better than nothing.
Now, what you do when you arrive in prison is you punch the biggest guy in the room.
Yep, 2 Tails stages in a row in the D tier. Keep in mind that not only is he the character you control in Route 101, which is the worst stage in the game for me, but there are only 2 Tails stages left in the ranking. You can tell this game really did him dirty level-wise.
That's almost as offensive as his portrayal in Sonic Forces.
Imagine if he was like that in Sonic Adventure 2. Prison Lane is the third level in the hero story, and the very first Tails stage. Usually, as we'll see, the levels made to introduce a specific type of gameplay in the story are good at worst. But this is the one exception that confirms the rule. This stage is just so boring, and since there is another level from the Dark story that is just this stage but 10 times better, this makes it even more worthless. There's pretty much nothing engaging here. You just walk in corridors above a black void for about 3 to 4 minutes, occasionally shooting a couple of enemies. What makes it worse is that there is not that much of a satisfying feeling of shooting rows of enemies at once, since in this level, being able to shoot more of 3 enemies at once is pretty much a rarity, especially for a beginner, which will most likely be on your first run of this level. Also, this level has a very long elevator sequence. Once again, if it was going down, it would be fine since you could cheese the sequence with the hover upgrade once you get it. But here, since it's going up, it's not quite a moment since this level actually sucks, you just have to wait. This sequence actually lasts more than 10 seconds. In a Mario game or Kirby game, or even any other game that focused on raw platforming, this would be fine with a bit more obstacles to avoid. But in a Sonic game, just 10 seconds of staying here and waiting can feel like an eternity. Plus, this is the very first mech shooting level of the hero story, and the first mech shooting level a lot of people played from what I've seen, and yet it's already full of enemies that are placed in the most bullshit locations that make a little teamy level from Super Mario Maker 2 feel fair. Like, is the first mech shooting level in the hero story, which the game seems to claim is the easier story of the two. Why the fuck are there several enemies that I can't see coming anywhere? At this point, it's not even just giving us a challenge, it's straight up bullshit because you have no time to react, and this can make completing mission 2 on this level, which has you get 100 rings, a nightmare since you always lose all your rings when you take damage. Overall, Prison Lane is the perfect example of what's not to do when designing a level to introduce a game style in a game like this, and honestly, it just feels like the mobile version of a level from the Dark Story that we're gonna get to later in this ranking. However, with these two levels out of the way, we are now on to the C tier. These are for the levels that are just mid. I can't say that I outright dislike them, but these levels still have too many problems for me to consider them any good.
First of all, yes, there is a comet in the sky, and yes, it is going to hit Springfield.
Meteor Herd is the 14th level in the hero story, and the final treasure hunting level in this story too. Since it's basically the story's equivalent to Mad Space, a lot of fans often see it as the lesser of two evils, because it's overall not as brutal as its counterpart from the Dark Story. But personally, I still think it's not really good at all. At least this time, the level is actually way easier to navigate through than Mad Space or Aquatic Mine. It's not just made of tight corridors and with a more vertical layout, you can easily go from the bottom to the top with the rockets or from the top to the bottom. But still, this level suffers from a lot of similar problems Mad Space also suffers from, even though they're already way more bearable in this level thanks to its tower-like vertical layout. Since the level is so big, you often get forced to check every layer of the stage to be sure you're not missing out on an emerald piece by going to the next one. And oftentimes, rockets make you skip several layers, meaning you often have to glide to lower layers. However, this level also has positive aspects. I really enjoy the idea of making it more vertical and very open, as that allows it to stand out a lot from the other treasure hunting stages, as no other level in the game is like that. Even though it can be a little annoying to go from one layer to another when you're aiming to go from one high layer to the other high layer, it's still really easy to go back to the starting area. And there are some gimmicks that are actually very well thought out for a treasure hunting stage, like those meteors you have to use to open doors, the use of Knuckles' sunglasses that can reveal secrets you can't find otherwise, and the meteors that force you to always be on your toes on the lowest layer. With a lot of good ideas, but also a lot of problems, I think this level fits in the C tier, even though I was about to put it in the D tier at first.
You left your keys on the table back there.
Death Chamber is another treasure hunting level that suffers from the trap of making the level unfair just for the sake of it being hard. It's the 12th level in the hero story and Knuckles' penultimate stage. Here, you're on a giant pyramid that is cut into 4 areas: the red room, the green room, the blue room, and the pyramid core that has access to all 3 other rooms at once. Those 3 colored rooms are also linked by corridors. And finally, you have to search for 3 keys for the door that leads to Eggman's base instead of pieces of the Master Emerald. I think this level's main idea could have been executed well, and in fact, there's another level here in this ranking that does this much better, but Death Chamber probably suffers from the fact that because it's played significantly later in its respective story, the developers thought that there were no limits on difficulty or how far this difficulty has to fill. So first, there's a flat-out bullshit amount of ghost jump scares. Again! Okay, this level sucks, I can't do this anymore, I'm done, like and subscribe, stay tuned for part.
If you think these goats suck but you're okay with the one from Mario, you're a Nintendo fanboy.
Okay, I'll continue the video in one part.
Works every time.
So first, yes, the ghosts. Honestly, I feel like the fact that this level is also very cleaned up, and the fact that there are many ghost jump scares just don't mix well. Here, some are hidden in the most bullshit places possible, and sometimes worse, in places that hide keys. As a result, for the longest time, I was literally scared to even go in that green room because I was always afraid that I would get a jump scare here. But if the ghost jump scares were the only bad part of this level, I think it could have gotten a better rank. No, the big problem of this level is that it's way too big. Since it's pretty closed up, going from one room to the other can take a really long time, especially if you try to go from the red room to the blue room, and all those corridors are very slow to go through and very limiting. Plus, in the corridor that tries to go from the red room to the blue room, they really added puzzles that force you to stop and use buttons to open the doors with those hourglasses. Basically, you have to flip them to open the door and then quickly cross the door before the hourglass's timer runs out. But they also added a lot of puzzles with those that just unnecessarily complicates navigation between the red and blue rooms. Since it's way too big, even taking the wrong path to a key can ruin your rank on this level, which can be the worst feeling ever. Worse, this level is full of portals that you can dig through to enter secret rooms. That could have been really cool, but these rooms can also hide keys, and if they do, the radar won't go off until you enter the room. And in fact, it can sometimes glitch and finger near the key due to how these rooms are placed far away from the rest of the level on the map. Without hints, those keys can take a staggering amount of 3 to 4 minutes to find, and I gotta remind you that the more you use hints, the more this will deduct 2 bonus points in your final score, so in many levels, you will instead want to try and use as little hints as possible. What makes this even worse is that once again, some of these hints are bullshit. Look at this one. Above the small flame. There are so many small flames in this level that in the end, this hint is most likely not helping anyone. Combined to all of this, this will make getting an A rank on this level, and most likely your enjoyment of it, depend on how lucky you get with where the keys spawn, which is just the worst thing ever with a level like this. I really love the haunted pyramid of this level, and the music is amazing too, but sadly, annoying navigation and bullshit key placements, along with its sides, really ruin this level for me, which is why I can't be any more generous than placing it in the C tier.
Hey, what's shaking?
Mission Street is the 7th level in the hero story, and Tails' second stage. This time, you have to cross a bridge that connects 2 cities, while fighting the gun's military robots as Tails just bailed out Sonic out of jail for a crime he didn't commit earlier in the story. There's also an earthquake going on for the entire duration of the level. So this is already a great improvement over the 2 previous mech shooting stages we talked about, because here the level isn't so easy it's boring, but it isn't too long either. It also has a good deal of exploration and hidden areas. However, it still comes with a lot of problems, mainly the way the enemies are placed. Most of the time in this level, enemies spawn by falling from the sky, and due to the fact that you have to be close to their spawn point to activate it, you're often gonna have enemies constantly falling on you without having any time to react. And since Tails doesn't have any upgrade that allows him to have more life points, unlike Eggman in the Dog story, our first playthrough of this level are likely gonna have you hear Tails complain a lot.
My machine has reached its limit.
And due to this, Mission Street ends up being another level where completing Mission 2, where you have to collect 100 rings, can become more of a chore than anything else. You practically end up always being forced to move super slowly to avoid taking damage. It's a bummer, because this level has some good ideas, like the earthquake gimmick, some secret spots on the level, or even the music, that's once again golden.
Even though this game soundtrack is clearly not made by Huntrix.
But it's ruined because of the sheer amount of enemies that you won't be able to see before they hit you, which can rapidly take out all the fun of this level. In fact, seeing as we only have 1 Tails stage left in this ranking, this means that 3 out of the 4 mech shooting stages in the hero story were in C tier or below. Wow, spoiler warning, all of Eggman's mech shooting stages are either B tier or A tier. So I'm starting to think that maybe the developers designed those stages first, and that since they had less experience than for Eggman stages, they fell in several traps that Eggman's levels don't have. I don't know, it's just a theory.
A game theory.
But it really gives me that feeling. Final Chases, as its name implies, the 14th and final level of the Dog story, and also Shadow's final level. It takes place on the outskirts of the Space Colony arc, as Shadow is chasing a mysterious intruder that is about to ruin Eggman's plan to use the cannon as a threat to conquer the world.
Who could that intruder be?
And yeah, it's not really a good final impression for the dog story. The sad thing is, it really wasn't that far from being an A tier or even S tier level, because it has a climactic atmosphere and unique gimmicks needed to make a good speed-based level. It revolves around these barrels. If you approach them, they attract you physically, and you can run around them to get on top of them. There's only one problem with this. The stage keeps throwing you into phases where you go from one barrel to another, and you have to be pixel perfect to get through them without any damage. For example, if you just land in the wrong spot here, you will run into the meteorites, which can quickly make you fall off if you're just a bit unlucky. Also, this is Sonic Adventure 2 we're talking about, and this game doesn't really have the best homing attack system. This is usually a move that allows you to aim an enemy directly or target to before attacking them, but in Sonic Adventure 2, it can be common that the game doesn't understand which target you're trying to aim for and either aims the wrong target or doesn't see any target at all when it's just ahead of you. And oftentimes, with those barrels, you have to do homing attacks to get on them properly, which can quickly turn this whole thing into a nightmare. Add to all of this that most of the phases that aren't straightforward speed phases pretty much always involve those barrels, and you can quickly understand why this level can become really tedious to play, especially since because you're in space, you have little to no second chances if you fall from one of those barrels, as they're mostly placed over a giant kill plane, which makes the whole thing feel even more unfair.
Damn, Shadow could use the Snake Miraculous here.
In fact, this level doesn't even have a very good musical theme. The one thing even bad Sonic levels practically never fail to deliver. Luckily, we're now out of the C tier. We're now off to the B tier levels, which are the levels that I actually like. They're not amazing levels, but I generally have a good time on them. So, how's the Tall's Pods, Grookey?
Wow, very good. Even has a taste of Frobscroddle.
Frobscroddle? Rookie, aren't you tired of taking us to restaurants that are not restaurants?
5 minutes should be plenty. Here I go.
I think some people may be surprised to see this level as high as in the B tier, because Security Hall isn't exactly among the most popular levels in the game. It's the 8th level in the dog story, and Rouge's 3rd treasure hunting stage. This level has a particularity that no other treasure hunting stage in that game has.
The fact that you're searching for 3 Chaos Emerald instead of Master Emerald pieces?
No. Well, yeah, actually you are, but it's not what most people remember the stage for. The most unique and memorable part of the stage is that it has a timer on its main mission, which can be very surprising for a level that places its focus on puzzles and exploration to find 3 Chaos Emeralds. You have 5 minutes to complete the level before the bomb Eggman sets on the island blows up. This mechanic is really a double-edged sword for this level in particular. On one hand, it gives a unique sense of urgency and panic to the stage that makes it stand out from the others. Since 5 minutes can be a short time to finish a treasure hunting stage on your first playthrough, it can actually make the level really stressful, especially since Eggman keeps yelling at you throughout the level.
What are you doing? Get going! Bring me the Chaos Emeralds now!
He sounds like your teacher when you're the last one who hasn't completed the exam.
However, due to the other mechanic of the level, I feel like Security Hall probably wasn't the best level to add a timer in. That mechanic is simple. There are a lot of safes in this level, and some can contain Chaos Emeralds. In fact, it's quite rare to go through a run of this level without one of them being in a safe. And the problem is that the majority of the safes are locked when you start the level. You have to go to a specific room in the level to find the switch that will unlock them so you can open the safe you want to enter. The problem is that there are 3 colors for the safes, and 3 switches that open the safes associated with each of these colors. So in the end, the safe gimmick turns into a luck-based mess, when your enjoyment of this level and your time bonus will just depend on how many Chaos Emeralds are in different safes in your run. I honestly hesitated on whether I wanted to rank this level in the B tier or C tier, because honestly, there are arguments that make me tilt towards both of these ends. On one hand, the uniqueness of this level and how the obstacle course parts are genuinely innovative and fun while also fitting the level that it's in make me want to go for a B tier. But on the other hand, the combination of time-consuming safe mechanic that can become tedious at times and of the timer make me want to go for a C tier. However, I still respect this level for what it is, and most of the time I play it, I genuinely have fun on it. So in the end, I decided to rank it in the B tier. Perhaps if I'd had a timer that was even a bit longer, like 7 or 10 minutes instead of 5, it could have ranked a bit higher.
Into outer space? Highly unusual.
Cosmic War is the 13th and penultimate stage of the Dog story, and the last mech shooting stage in that story. And to me, it wasn't that far from being a really great level. Already, as I said, Eggman's mech shooting stages are much better and more balanced than Tails. This stage gimmick is simple. Since gravity is very low here, Eggman's hover upgrade that he got in the level you'll see later in this ranking allows him to actually float upwards for a short time, which makes for a lot of interesting platform phases. Most platform phases in mech shooting stages can be really annoying in stages like Mission Street or Eternal Engine for example, but with the low gravity, Cosmic War makes the best of it by finding the right balance between platforming phases and actual mech shooting. You will have to descend slowly while aiming for maximum amount of enemies and shoot at the right moment to make the best combo you can. You also have to shoot small pyramids while floating to go upwards in this tower easily. What drives this level down is mainly those sections on grinding cables. They're repetitive, they look like the only purpose was for the player to make big combos, and they are way too long. As I said, for me, the ideal time to complete a level in this game should be between 2 minutes 30 and 3 minutes 30, with 4 minutes as an absolute maximum for harder levels. However, this level can take between 6 minutes 30 to 7 minutes 30 to complete, and that's if you don't aim for the A rank. Really, I'm not even making up an excuse to use the 6-7 meme, it genuinely takes that long to finish this level. Therefore, it can really get boring and redundant at times. Despite this, Cosmic War is still a good level that finds the perfect balance between platforming and mech shooting. If the level was a bit shorter and didn't have those rail grinding phases, it could have easily ended in A tier.
Like that poor creature there in the iron butt.
Iron Gate is both the first level of the Dog story in general and Eggman's first mech shooting level, introducing the stakes and the general atmosphere of the Dog story, which is a bit more edgy than the hero story.
You do know that nobody uses this word when it's not meant to be negative, right?
It shares its theme with Prison Game, which also introduces mech shooting levels in the hero story, but it's a much better introduction to this gameplay than Tails' counterparts, even though it's the first level of the Dog story. Because here, the developers made sure to make the level more ambitious and more eventful. First, the problem with the theme has been alleviated, because there are way less of these ugly pitch black areas. Most of them are surrounded by actual walls, which already makes Iron Gate feel more organic than Prison Game in its theme. But the gameplay was also handled much better. First, the elevator sections go from the upper parts to the lower parts now, which can make repeat playthroughs of this level much less tedious, as once you get the hover upgrade, you can just fly over them and cheese them, which requires much more skill than just going on them normally. Then, there's way more exploration in the level, as you can deviate from the main route and find the lost Chow from Mission 3, and while the enemies are numerous enough for you to have to be on your toes and on the attack, they're not completely unfairly played, as you can still mostly see each enemy coming. Now, Iron Gate remains very simple, but it's a good introduction to the Dog story, so I can't place it any lower.
You are not canon, you are canon!
Canon's Core is the very last level in the game, belonging to an entirely different story than the Dog and Hero stories. It's the last story, a third story that you unlock after beating both the Dog and Hero stories. It's actually the only level in the last story, not counting the bosses, and it consists of 5 phases, one for each character, except for Shadow.
Because the developers didn't like him, I guess.
And I think this level is good. While it is far from being the best part of the climax of the game, it's still enjoyable for what it is. Let's review it, going phase by phase. You start the level with Tails. You're introduced to the main gimmick of this level, switches that can stop time. You have to get to a big room and to shoot and destroy a giant door. This one's fine. It's surprisingly varied. You have some platforming phases that utilize the time-stopping switches cleverly, and enemies to shoot, though some of them are undeniably placed really unfairly. Eggman's phase is good, but it is kind of forgettable as it's not that different from Tails' phase. There's platforming, time-stopping phases, and movements where you just get more hasty as you shoot everything you see. Next, you have Rouge's phase. It's short, but not too bad. First, you climb several giant pillars to stop time and be able to get through this sand waterfall.
Dry waterfalls are officially not an oxymoron anymore.
You then have to open the machine to activate a switch that will flood the entire room, allowing Knuckles to enter it for his phase. You get through a long hallway that mainly uses the swimming mechanic in this game. Now, I must say, there's something problematic about this phase. Since it's almost exclusively taking place underwater, you have to use the air necklace that you find in Aquatic Mine to complete it. So if you skip the item, you're gonna have to exit Cannon's Core, backtrack to Aquatic Mine, and lose your progress on the former, which kind of sucks, especially since this game came out in 2001 and the internet was less developed than today back then. So there was like little to no way to understand you missed a mandatory item by yourself, which really sucks, especially as we discussed, Aquatic Mine is just garbage. And Knuckles' face is pretty crap too, just because of how much more hollow the underwater controls are compared to normal controls. Like seriously, you can barely do anything else than avoid enemies, and in a game where platforming isn't as important as in a Mario game, especially with a character like Knuckles or Rouge, that becomes annoying really fast. Fortunately, Sonic comes right after for the final phase of this level, and this part is really fun. You mix inverted rails, short speed phases, and puzzles that are complex enough, but not too annoying. And you also have to be on your toes for the artificial chaos. As you know, I usually hate these enemies, but they're already way less annoying to deal with speed characters as you can avoid them and beat them much more easily, especially since a good chunk of the artificial chaos of this section specifically are the ones that simply throw droplets of their bodies on the ground to attack you. And you end the level with a sandy slide section, which might be very simple, but it's still cool that it's here, and it's neat to end the level like this. Overall, Cannon's Core is an alright way to kick off the last story before the final two boss fights. It's not one of my favorite levels, but it's still a good one, and even though it has some flaws, the good still outweighs the bad here by quite a large margin.
Aren't we weapons? Come on!
Weapons Bed is the 7th level in the Dark story, and Eggman's 4th and penultimate stage. Yes, there's an absurdly large gap between the penultimate and final Eggman stage in that story. I honestly wish they had a Shadow stage here and an Eggman stage after Security Hall to balance things out, but that's not what we're here to talk about. What we want to know is how good Weapons Bed is as a level. Well, it's a pretty nice one. This is where you get a new upgrade that allows you to shoot metal crates first and foremost. That's already pretty neat. Then, you start the level with armies of very weak robots you can shoot to get massive combos. And while it's so easy that even your grandma who only played Candy Crush and Block Blast could do it easily, you can't deny that it's still satisfying. And this only happens in the very first part of the level, so even if it's barely challenging, it doesn't overstay its welcome. Then, you have a nice mix of platforming phases and shooting phases. You have enough enemies to worry about to be on your toes when playing those platforming parts, but not so much that you end up being overwhelmed. There's also a great deal of exploration in the level, with a lot of secrets to find if you're just a bit curious, especially in the more open areas of the level. There are 3 of those in total, and all of them have a bit of secrets to find in those buildings. It remains a rather simple level, and some parts, especially the ones combining flying enemies and hovering, can still be frustrating, so I won't rank it that higher. But it's still a really fun level nonetheless, that, in spite of its simplicity, reunites what's needed to make a good mech shooting level.
Come along with me. Come on and get crazy for see.
Crazy Gadget is the 15th and penultimate level in the hero story, and also Sonic's 5th and penultimate stage. Needless to say, this is far from being the most popular level in the game. In fact, a lot of people consider it to be the worst speed stage in Sonic Adventure 2. The reason is, once again, gravity. This level takes place inside the Space Colony Ark, and its main gimmick is these little buttons that, when you press them, can change the direction of gravity, allowing you to walk on walls and ceilings. These buttons make the level quite confusing sometimes, and moreover, the last stretch of the level is nothing more than a giant maze of colorful blocks where you must find those buttons to land on the final area, so I can understand why people hate this level. But personally, I still kind of like it. Firstly, I feel like there is a good balance here between phases where you just speed through the level and more intricate platforming phases. Those speedy phases can be quite fun and unique in their own right, with Sonic grinding under the Space Colony and speeding through giant pipes.
Bro still thinks he's Mario.
The platforming phases work too, with some fun puzzles playing with gravity like in that last section, which, despite its confusing layout, is not as bad, it can still be fun, and also some chains of enemies that actually check and do the timing of your homing attacks. Of course, not everything in this level is perfect. Sometimes, the gravity gimmick can be really shitty, like here for example. You have to choose which button to press to make gravity go the right way so it can progress in the level. If you pick the middle one, you'll end up falling, and since you're over a giant kill pin where the only way to continue is to land on the rail that you're supposed to reach by picking the button on the right, you'll most likely lose a life at this point, which is really just like those fucking pick-a-path troll levels that I see way too often in Super Mario Maker 2.
Somebody please fire a little Timmy from Sega!
Also, I wish that there was a little bit more exploration in this level. As it is now, there aren't really any bits where you are really rewarded from exploring the level. Due to this, Crazy Gadget has less replay value, which is a shame because the gravity gimmick could have easily made for some great exploration ideas, which could have maybe made the stage a bit more popular by making the whole thing more gratifying when you replay it. But despite those shortcomings, I still think Crazy Gadget has a really enjoyable level in its own right, with cool stunts you can pull off and fun platforming sections. If the gravity gimmick didn't have those trollish phases, I think this level could have made it to the A tier. Speaking of, this is the tier we're entering now. Yep, Sonic Adventure 2's level quality is quite good, as almost all of its levels are either A tier or S tier. So let's enter the A tier now, which is the tier for the level that I really love, and that I'm always genuinely happy to play in priority.
And the Sand Guardian, Guardian of the Sand!
Sand Ocean is the third level of the Dog Story, and Eggman's second level as well, and to me, it's definitely a step up from Iron Gate. First, this level has a really cool theme, with Eggman going back to his permanent base in the middle of an Egyptian ruins during a starry night, which already makes this level really appealing, especially since the music is also really cool and fitting for the level. Sand Ocean incorporates a lot of platforming in this gameplay. Since you do not have Eggman's hover upgrade that allows you to glide, you will be forced to go from moving platforms with normal jumps, which brings a much needed spike of difficulty at this point in the game. However, the level remains more interesting with the hover upgrade, as it allows you not only to do some shortcuts, but also to discover secrets that were previously inaccessible, like Eggman's Mystic Melody, which is hidden near the start of this level. But also several platforms that allow you to get more points, which allows this level to be more than just a linear stage where you're only going from start to finish. So even though there's another level a bit later in the list that is gonna handle this theme and gameplay way better, Sand Ocean is still a great level in its own right.
You lose! Good day, sir!
Lost Colony is the 6th level in the Dog Story, and Eggman's 3rd stage. And for me, It's his best one, no contest. In fact, I think it works perfectly well for the dog story, and it's also easily the most atmospheric mech shooting stage. The whole level takes place inside of the Space Colony arc, but this time you play as Eggman, who explores it for the first time as he searches for the central control room Shadow talked about when telling him about the colony earlier in the story. And every element in the stage works well to fit that part. Before this level, what lies in the whole colony is unknown by any other character aside from Shadow, and the level perfectly encapsulates that feeling of mystery in its atmosphere and gameplay. The atmosphere always feels dark, gloomy, and ominous, perfectly giving a sense of danger in the level. Even the music, which is more often than not upbeat and energetic or edgy in mech shooting levels, is now much more calm, slow, cautious, and almost alien-like, perfectly emphasizing the whole sense of mystery that this part of the game gives you at this point. Even the main gimmick fits well. The whole level is dark, and shooting the enemies in the room will progressively make said room brighter and brighter. It perfectly fits the feeling of exploration and mystery that you get when playing this level, as you constantly feel like you're exploring uncharted territory, a feeling that no other level in the game gives me, which really makes it feel more unique. Of course, if the only quality of that gimmick was that it was fitting to the atmosphere, I would be less indulgent on the gameplay, but it's good too. This forces you to move more slowly, to look before you leap if you don't want to lose a life here.
Don't worry, you're not likely to lose a life. You touch plenty of grass.
And the level plays a lot of this gimmick in different ways, from platforming to puzzles. But the game also makes sure that you can see enough so the level doesn't turn into a massive troll, as you can see enemies from far away with their lights, and the hover upgrade that you get in this level gives you a bigger margin of error for this one. Therefore, it's both atmospheric and fun, which is the best of both worlds. Overall, Lost Colony is a really good surprise for this game, and I feel like this level is unnecessarily underrated.
This tree stump is rotting too.
White Jungle is the ninth level of the dog story, and Shadow's second level. Yeah, when you look right down to it, the dog story is kinda messed up in the order. By the halfway mark, Eggman has gotten 4 of his 5 levels, while Shadow only got 1 of them. It's kinda stupid that we have to wait past the halfway mark to get the second Shadow level, and I think it would have been better if Shadow gets his first level as the third one in the dog story to make Sand Ocean the 4th one instead, while having White Jungle without the time limit be the 7th level in the dog story, and Weapons Bed get that time limit and is the 9th level. That way, it would just feel more cohesive and balanced. But we're not here to talk about if the order the level fits. We're here to talk about whether they are good. And I must say, White Jungle is a great level. Its only shortcoming is the music that isn't necessarily memorable, but apart from that, everything's great. First, the theme is really great, with that rainy, misty jungle that really gives the whole level a more dangerous atmosphere, which is fitting for Shadow's personality. Then, the level alternates between speed phases and platforming phases perfectly. You'll speed ahead on ball-shaped trunks and perform stunts on vines a lot.
You do know Carl Yoko fans don't never speak about vines, right?
Yes, I know I broke number 1 of the community. Don't worry, I agree that this scene was fucked up. But there's also a good deal of slower phases where you have to fight some robots, avoid tanks, and do some homing attack combos, or even have good platforming skills with some smaller platforms. This level is surprisingly varied, despite a short length, making it fun all the way through as it combines skill and speed while also fitting perfectly in that short and sweet category. Overall, White Jungle follows a perfect recipe to make a good speed level, mixing speed phases with stunts that will make the level more memorable and slower phases that allow the level to regularly test your skills.
Maybe if you were the real Pharaoh, which you're not.
And look at that! Despite Tails' stages being mostly really bad, his only good stage ended up being the best mech shooting stage in general. Hidden Base is the 10th level of the hero story, and Tails' third stage, not counting Route 101. It shares its theme with Sand Ocean, as you have to go to Eggman's Pyramid Base again, but this time you play the level during the day. However, this level executes this concept so much better than Sand Ocean, as it is placed after the moment where you're supposed to get the hover upgrade, allowing this level to feel freer from the get-go. It makes the best of the fact that Tails can now glide, with a lot of platforming phases where you also have to be cautious of flying enemies around you. Since this level allows itself to exploit the possibilities given by the hover upgrade, there's also a lot of room for split paths, with a lot of them hiding something interesting. Some of those split paths are accessible from the get-go, while others gradually open up as you unlock upgrades like that cannon that allows you to shoot metal boxes and the mystic melody that I mentioned. Replaying this level becomes overall very satisfying, because as you replay it while getting more and more upgrades to Tails robot, you become able to explore more places in the level, giving a Metroidvania vibe to it. And this stage also works well as a mirror to Sand Ocean. While Sand Ocean's theme has a more dark, edgy, and almost casual thing to it, simply having Eggman return to his own base, Hidden Base takes place during the day, and its music has a more upbeat and motivating tone, almost like an anime opening, which fits Tails' personality. And the part of the story where you play his level, as this is the point where the crew infiltrates Eggman's Pyramid Base, has really high stakes. Overall, Hidden Base is the best mech shooting level in the whole game, combining a cool theme, an amazing atmosphere, a good number of enemies to shoot, and a good deal of exploration for a great result.
That was wild.
Wild Canyon is the second level in the hero story, and Knuckles' first level. And to me, is the perfect way to introduce his gameplay mechanic. As we saw, a lot of game treasure hunting levels were way too big, like Mad Space or Meteor Herd, or hard to navigate through, like Death Chamber or Aquatic Mine. I swear I'm so not for this shit. But Wild Canyon is constructed perfectly. The level is kind of divided into 4 small sections. A cave where you start the level, and then a giant arid canyon that has 1 circular section and 2 rectangular ones. 2 holes, with one having a giant air current, allow you to go from the lower end to the higher end of the level and vice versa. It works perfectly for the reader of this game, which, I remind you, will search 1 emerald at a time instead of searching all emeralds at once, because hints can be helpful but not essential in this level, which is perfect as the more you use hints, the less you will get bonus points when you find an emerald. Honestly, I wish all closed down treasure hunting levels were as small as this one, as it really alleviates the frustration and navigating issues that I had with Death Chamber or Aquatic Mine. Also, this level is pretty good at inserting exploration too. When you get the upgrade that allows you to dig through walls a bit later in the hero story, you can dig through some magic walls that will teleport you to various caves that hold several types of secrets, like Knuckles' Mystic Melody. It even requires to complete hard mode. And as some other walls are hidden behind metal boxes, this also requires you to get another upgrade even later in the hero story to break those. Just like in Hidden Base, this gives a Metroidvania vibe to the level, as the first playthrough will likely be very simple, but as you get more and more upgrades, each playthrough is a bit more complex and reveals a bit more things than the previous one. Wild Canyon is a perfect introduction for Knuckles, and it also manages the task of being just as fun even after you become an expert.
You say expert, but I bet everyone who liked the levels you put in C tier or below is gonna call you out for a skill issue.
Do you like eggs?
And now, we're entering the top 10 with Egg Quarters, the 5th level in the Dark Story, and Rouge's second stage. It shares its theme and concept with Death Chamber, with the Haunted Pyramid theme. The treasure hunting gameplay, the keys you have to find instead of emerald pieces, the 3 colored rooms, and the rather closed down layout. You might wonder why I put this level up so high, given that I criticized Death Chamber a lot for its confusing layout and gameplay. Well, the answer is very simple. Since this level is placed way earlier in the Dark story, it had to be easier and simpler than Death Chamber, and the developers did this by removing most of the tedious aspects of said level. First, Death Chamber had this giant circular room that links the red, green, and blue rooms. This made the level way more confusing, as going from the green room to the blue room especially could quickly become a nightmare. In headquarters, this circular room is removed. Each of the 3 colored rooms have a color link to it that takes you to one of the other 2 rooms, already making navigation way simpler. Then, Death Chamber had a really tedious hourglass mechanic that not only forced you to go constantly fast when crossing a door, but also to go through annoying puzzles just to go from the red room to the blue room. Headquarters removed this hourglass gimmick entirely. Instead, it has a beetle robots mechanic. When the beetle robot enters a room, you have to hide in the shadow, or else it'll shoot a laser on Rouge. This is a way better mechanic, as it doesn't make the level unnecessarily complex, nor does it make a playthrough longer than it should be, but it adds the right amount of difficulty so the level doesn't become too simple. Then, in general, the level is way smaller, meaning that choosing hints can be useful but totally optional, just as it should be, as you can easily find all the keys in under 2 or 3 minutes without having to resort to doors, unlike in Mad Space or Death Chamber, where they are pretty much indispensable. Then, they also remove the possibilities that a key can be hidden in those rooms that you can only access by digging through secret walls, which greatly benefits the level, as you won't have those moments where you spend way too long searching for a key that is a tiny room when the radar will only go when you dig through that wall. And as for my ghost problem,
Dude, of course we're gonna mention it.
well, this level only has 2 jump scares, and they're pretty easy to remember and see coming once you know where they are, so it's not too problematic. Overall, Headquarters showed that Death Chamber's concept wasn't dead on arrival at all. It just needed a smaller size, a better gimmick than the hourglasses, and simply to avoid the "we're in the gate games, we gotta be unfair" trap, and boom! You have a really great level that's honestly amazing to replay and speedrun despite being simpler than its hero story counterpart.
Take my picture. I got the pyramid in my hand.
Pyramid Cave is the 11th level in the hero story and Sonic's 4th stage. In this level, Sonic rushes through Eggman's Pyramid Cave to find the door that leads to his rocket. This stage is a bit more straightforward than the Sonic levels we'll see at the top of the list, but it's still really fun to play. First, the music is really amazing. It encapsulates the more inhospitable atmosphere of Eggman's Pyramid Cave and the optimistic, never-give-up nature of Sonic, and also the stakes that keep getting higher as the adventure goes on. Then, the level has a good balance of gameplay phases. It mixes straightforward speedy sections and slower platforming sections pretty well. For example, there are these long corridors where you run for a pretty long time, but they are not devoid of any player agency, as you will also be able to jump and bounce through those floating hoops to get more bonus points, which can be very useful in getting the A rank for this level, and also surprisingly difficult. The last one of these corridors even has ghosts that roam around and that you have to try to avoid to reach the door that leads to the next room before it closes down, even though I wish those ghosts were slower. Then, the slower platforming sessions also have their deal of surprises. You have to take several small keys to little pedestals to open up the other doors, but you'll also have to be on your toes for ghosts and mobiles, as you can't attack them on your standard spin dash or your homing attack while holding that small key, so sometimes you'll have to throw it and then pick it up. And this time, the ghosts actually have a reason to be here instead of just traumatizing children.
Wow, I wonder who at Sonic Team loved Big Boo's heart from Super Mario 64 this much.
Because if you touch them, they grab Sonic and you will also lose a non-negligible amount of time just trying to break free from their grip. So you'd also preferably have to avoid them, which also makes for a good deal of strategic methods you can find to pass this level much more easily. The only thing I don't like is, as I said, how they are so fast that there are one or two parts where you're pretty much guaranteed to be grabbed by a ghost. Like, seriously, it's pretty much inevitable in this level. It really kills the momentum and the pace, but otherwise, they're not too hard to avoid, and this can be way more fun. The open sections feature a good deal of exploration with small animals and shower containers to find, so even if the level is linear, playthrough will be more varied than a level like Crazy Gadget where exploration is pretty limited. Overall, Pyramid Cave is a very good level that understands well what Sonic is all about. Speed, of course, but also stunts and exploration. Daddy, water! Dry Lagoon is the second level in the Dog Story, and Rouge's first treasure hunting stage. Yep, if you followed this video well up until this point, first, thank you very much, and then you'll notice that Rouge's treasure hunting stages in the Dog Story just kept getting worse and worse as it went on. Congratulations, Rouge, there was an attempt.
Wait, you forgot to tweet it.
Shh. This level doesn't exist. So, Dry Lagoon is a very good introduction for Rouge. In a way, it's an even better introduction than Wild Canyon. First, the theme is way more appealing. It keeps Wild Canyon's desert atmosphere, but adds a tropical oasis theme that makes the whole level feel so chill. To me, with weapons bet and another level we'll see later in the ranking, is a closest thing we have in this game to an actual beach themed level like Tropical Coast from Sonic Lost World or Neo Green Hill Zone from the first Sonic Advance game. And it combined the tropical and desert themes perfectly for a result that also fits Rouge as a character really well. Then, much like Wild Canyon, the layout is perfectly adapted to this level and to the new radar in this game. The level is divided into two zones, and you can go from one of them to another by saving that turtle and going on its back. But these zones aren't too big either, meaning that you won't waste too much time searching for N more pieces in the wrong zone before concluding that it's in an other one. The placements for these emeralds aren't too bullshit either, so even without hints, you can easily find more them in under 3 minutes, which is also a plus. Each section is cut down pretty well. The vertical one is cut between the lower end and the higher end, and the horizontal one is cut between 2 rectangular zones and 1 circular oasis, so it's way easier to find emeralds, as the best strategy is simply to go to these areas one by one until the radar starts beeping. As such, it's a perfect introduction to learn how the treasure hunting stages work, and this level remains fun to play even on repeat playthrough. Plus, there is some exploration too. Some areas are more hidden and incentivize you to explore the stage. In short, Dry Lagoon is a really good level that introduces treasure hunting in this game really well with a cool theme, a good deal of exploration, and a great layout that allows you to find the emerald pieces pretty quickly without even needing any hints.
I just think Radical Highway is so cool.
Radical Highway is the 4th stage in the Dog Story, and Shadow's 3rd stage. Why isn't it the 3rd stage instead so you don't get double dipping for Eggman right away? I don't know. I mean, Shadow has already been done really dirty in the story. He only gets 4 stages in a game where you naturally expect more speed-based stages. Because it's Sonic! But I digress. This level uses the same scenery as Mission Street, as you are now running on the bridge that separates the 2 cities in the aforementioned stage. You have to do loop-de-loops, stunts, and jump from platform to platform to go through the destroyed bridge.
I know that it's pretty cliche to say, but what kind of highway has loop-de-loops in it? Is this a new highway or a new ride for Action Park?
Well, it's not the era, since that park was shut down 5 years before Sonic Adventure 2 was released. But regardless, Radical Highway is a really good level. Already, it's very memorable with the stunts you pull off. The level throws you into the action right away, as it starts with Shadow literally grinding a replica of the Golden Gate Bridge, which is already pretty cool to say the least. Even though many of the straightforward speed sections commonly use loop-de-loops make them more distinct, there are also more memorable automatic stunt sections, like this building filled with springs. But there are also stunts that will test your skills with multiple speed hit paths in the level. You can jump off trick ramps, grab a small iron bar to jump off it, and cross a destroyed bridge. Grind on more suspension cables in the level. All of this allows for more replay value with all those different hit paths and stunts that allow the level to place a bigger emphasis on exploration. You can even get Game Ring upgrade thanks to the Galactic Dash upgrade I talked about earlier, where the little shortcut the developers deliberately placed, which I think is a pretty cool way to increase the replay value of this stage. You also had to prove some platforming skills to complete this level, with this section where you can do a homing attack combo for a good score with those Beetle robots, a giant Vulcan king that shoots missiles that you must avoid, and also some robots that want to attack Shadow with lasers. So what prevents this level from being in the S tier? Well, the answer is pretty simple. The more straightforward speed sections are kinda repetitive and almost feel copy-pasted from each other with how each of them feature good deals. If this level had more very straightforward sections, or if they even had more player agency, this stage could have easily ended in the S tier. But honestly, even though the level is simpler than many other speed-based stages, I still think Radical Highway is a really cool level, and that with the stunts you pull off in various pit paths that increase replay value, it doesn't get old even on a repeat playthrough.
Well, but this time, I guess Black Doom was right in that video. Radical Highway is very cool.
And now, we're entering even cooler levels with the S tier. This is for levels that I consider pretty much perfect, I mean like 20% cooler than A tier. Even if I try to come up with a flaw for these ones, it will probably just sound like me nitpicking rather than a legitimately understandable complaint about them.
So, that day has had some inconveniences, but at least we can enjoy good dinner on the pier right now. What do you think of that seafood, Gookie? Pretty good. Wanna get some more salmon?
Rated WOW for all ages.
Skyrail is the 11th level in the Dog Story, and Shadow's 3rd stage. For me, this is easily the best Shadow stage, and also the best level the Dog Story has to offer, as it combines everything you'd want in a good Sonic level. First, the main gimmick is amazing. It's a perfect way to prepare for another level from the Hero Story that we'll see later in the ranking.
Even though you forgot to add that therefore, they should have put Skyrail in the Hero Story and Pyramid Cave in the Dog Story due to this.
As this level primarily learns you to use the rails and test your skills with them. And I gotta say, it's an amazing way to showcase them. With this theme of this pumpkin canyon during the day, it combines platforming sequences and rail grinding perfectly, as you alternate between performing stunts on these mountains and grinding between them. First and foremost, the exploration in this level is really good. There are a lot of split paths that really incentivize multiple playthroughs, as each time you play Skyrail or take a new path, you'll discover a whole new way to play the level, whether it's the new types of stunts or shortcuts that allow you to finish the level more quickly, which is perfect as this is the shortest speed stage in the game, clocking gains at not even 1 minute 40, which means your time bonus will likely be bigger than in many other levels. Then, this stage really has cool rail grinding. Even though the player agency is minimal, those sections are still visually cool with some cool camera angles, plus they remain way shorter than say Radical Highways, so they don't become too redundant. Once again, this level proves that Sonic Adventure 2 is really good at making short and sweet levels that may be over in less than 2 minutes, but that use every inch of the layout to be memorable and really make this short amount of time count. In the end, this level may be short, but it didn't necessarily need to be longer. You can still spend a lot of time here on repeat playthroughs by exploring all the different pit paths and finding which one is the best to get the coveted A rank. And finally, the theme is really good. I love how it's basically a version of another level that normally takes place during the day, but that feels more normal and less ominous. I don't have any word to describe this feeling, but in a way, it really makes it sound like the Dr. Jekyll version of another level, and I think it's really cool. Speaking of which...
Rated for mature Zoobles only!
Yep, Pumpkin Hill is the Mr. Hyde to Skyrail's Dr. Jekyll.
That's one of the worst metaphors that I've ever heard.
It's the 6th level in the Hero Story, and Knuckles' 2nd level. And to me, it's not only the best treasure hunting stage in the game, but also the best stage that isn't a speed stage. This level has everything going for it. First, it perfectly understood how to make the search for emeralds fun, engaging, and feasible without hints, while being built at Wow Canyon, Dry Lagoon, or Egg Quarters. The level is very big, but it's also very easy to navigate through. You're in an open canyon, and there are 3 big mountains that are the main landmarks of this level, each with something of value, and you can glide between them to see which one of them has the emerald pieces you're looking for. But the rockets that are placed in some areas of the level also have plots for navigation. It's a stark contrast with mad space, where gravity makes it a nightmare to even get out of some of the planets when you don't find a rocket quickly enough, or Death Chamber, which is so big while being claustrophobic that you can end up wasting 2 minutes just searching for the key if you're unlucky.
Wait, doesn't Pumpkin Hill have ghost jump scares though? How is it an S tier?
I'll address that as well. It's true that putting this level so high might seem contradictory because I criticized both Death Chamber and Aquatic Mine for a high number of ghost jump scares, and Pumpkin Hill has a lot of them too. In fact, it's the second level after Aquatic Mine that took me the longest time to beat in the game when I was younger, 3 months in total. But first, it's nothing compared to the time I spent to beat Aquatic Mine once again. 1 fucking year! And then, the ghost jump scares in this level are hidden in places that are much more noticeable and reasonable. So first, you won't get necessarily harassed by ghosts every 3 seconds in several specific rooms, and you can avoid them pretty easy. But then, when you get the jump scare, you know where they are. Due to this, the ghosts are never really a nuisance when I replay this level, as opposed to Aquatic Mine or Death Chamber, where they sometimes pop out of literally nowhere. Like, look at that. How the fuck is that one even fair? But I like the rest. Something Pumpkin Hill particularly nails is the theme and the atmosphere. In fact, just like Lost Colony, it got such a good ranking primarily because of that. I just love how eerie this whole level feels. The vibrant yet dark twilight background that combines red, yellow, and purple makes for an incredible result. The pumpkin structures look at you ominously. The drab, harsh color palette with dead trees and even the music fits Halloween perfectly with that psychedelic feel, and the repetitive piano tune and the alien-like whistling tunes gives a really ominous atmosphere to this level that's no other stage shares, not even Lost Colony. This alone makes it way more unique and fun, with that creepy feeling, and it's the main reason why this level ended up in S2. Congratulations, Sega! You see, you can add ghosts to the treasure hunting level and making it actually good!
Green is not a creative color.
Green Forest is the 5th level of the hero story, and Sonic's 3rd level. I don't know why they didn't swap it with Pumpkin Hill, as it's weird having Sonic use the whole half of his stage before Knuckles and Tails even get to have their 2nd stage, but that's not the point. Let's focus on the level itself. This stage has the same forest theme as White Jungle, and it also has a timer, but unlike White Jungle, it takes place in a more sunny and lively jungle, as opposed to the more ominous and dangerous feeling White Jungle. However, I think Green Forest is way better in many ways, and that's in spite of White Jungle also being great. First, Green Forest's music works way better. In this level, Sonic is running away from Prison Island as there's a bomb that's gonna blow up with him on it in a couple of minutes if he doesn't get out of here. The music perfectly encapsulates that sense of rush and panic with that fast-paced guitar riff. I think this comment on the extended OST of this level sums up my thoughts about it pretty well. This song definitely has some get the heck out of here ASAP vibes, and I love it. The level itself is a mix of high-speed sections in bowl-shaped trunks and platforming with many tube-shaped platforms, and I especially love how the level managed to have such a good deal of exploration in spite of having to be fast-paced to accommodate for the timer, even though I never even used half the time available in this level during my playthrough, but I digress. Just like Skyrail, it has a lot of split paths in several sections, meaning you can easily have a pocket full of games on this level that will be completely different depending on the path you take. Once again, it's up to you to find the paths that will allow you to get the best combination of a good time and a good score in these levels, and discovering the new paths in this stage can be really fun, as each of them have something of value, whether it's a Chow box, enemies chained that allow for more combos, or even the path that will lead you to the Lost Chow. Then, I really like this mechanic towards the end where the ground starts collapsing. It first goes well with the high stakes music and atmosphere of the level, and then it makes it feel more unique and also harder, which is much needed at this point seeing that it's Sonic's third level. Once again, I don't get why it's placed before Pumpkin Hill given this. There's just one little problem. This section in this level is kind of obnoxious, as your homing attack will occasionally not notice this robot and instead make you zoom into the abyss, but it's pretty minor, and it's more of a problem with the game design than this level of part in particular, which we'll talk about a bit later in the video, so I don't think it drags it down too much. It remains a really good level that mixes a lot of split paths that increase exploration and replay value, a really cool jungle scenery, amazing music, and a great mix of speed with various stunts involving vines, grinding and loop-de-loops, and platforming with 2 platforms.
Atrocity is back!
We are now entering the top 3, and that's where we start to rank the levels that are, according to my humble and undisputable opinion, the most iconic ones in the game. As you saw, the next level to cover is City Escape. It's the first level in the hero story, and also Sonic's first stage, but also the most popular and well-known stage in the game, even reappearing in Sonic Generation.
Actually, Radical Highway also reappeared in 3DS version of Sonic Generation.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, I agree with the consensus. While 2 levels in that game managed to surpass it in my opinion, City Escape is still an amazing level, and a great introduction to the game, bearing in mind that it's clear that the developers seem to expect that you check the hero story first. You barely started the story and the game throws you right into the action without snowboarding sequence on the street of Central City. It's already a great way to introduce Sonic, his gameplay, and the general vibes of that franchise to someone who'd never played it before. He's literally being chased by for a crime he didn't commit, yet he'd still use a snowboard rather than simply run. The more straightforward sequences of this level with the tilted streets are perfect, because unlike the other ones where you just have to shut down your brain and wait for Sonic to get into the next open section or platforming section, one is scattered with ramps that you have to trick off to get some points, which can be very helpful for getting the A rank, so you have something to do to test your skills while you're snowboarding or running in these more straightforward sections. It also introduces rail grinding, a new mechanic in this game really well, as none of it is buff pit, and while it's optional, the game strongly encourages you to grind on those ramps, and the rest of these grinding sections is long enough for you to fully grasp the new mechanic, even though it's way more complex than in most other Sonic games that feature it. This level also has a lot of split paths and stuff to explore. For example, here, you can either go down and get the magic hand power up once you have all the upgrades.
I personally forget it even existed before you mentioned it again.
And then, you can choose between platforming on those little moving platforms or jump from ramp to ramp to go up on this platform and do homing attack combo on these beetle robots. All of this to say, this level perfectly understood not only how to fix straightforward speed sections and platforming, but also how to make both of them engaging and fun even on repeat playthroughs. Overall, City Escape is the perfect introduction to Sonic Adventure 2, and arguably one of the best first level made in a video game in general.
I guess it is rocket science.
Metal Harbor is the 4th level in the hero story, and Sonic's 2nd stage overall. And to me, just like City Escape, is the perfect example of how to make a good Sonic level. Honestly, the developers really nailed the introductory levels of the game, because except for Prison Lane, they're all really good and do a great job in introducing their respective gameplay style, or at initiating the players to new mechanics with those. This level is much faster and straightforward even compared to other speed levels in the game. You're practically always running, spin dashing, snowboarding, or homing attacking, but it also keeps some room for player agency. You can try to land on rails near the main path to grind on them and gain some points if you manage to stay on them all the way through, or try to do some homing attack combos on these builds, while also trying to get that golden deal that brings you more points than other enemies, but it's also harder to beat. There's one of them in every level, and Metal Harbor's Golden Beetle is the perfect introduction to this mechanic, as you really can't miss it visually, but it will still take some skill to get it. Despite its straightforward nature, the level is rather short, and after the first run of the stage where you get the Ice Dash upgrade, you will most likely finish your other runs in 2 minutes or less, especially if you're aiming for an A rank. Therefore, the level doesn't overstay its welcome, and still feels varied, as you pretty much always have a stunt to do. I wish that the developers used this philosophy more for the simpler levels, as some levels that aren't necessarily complex or varied enough to justify being longer than Metal Harbor are a bit too long for their own good, like Final Chase, Cosmic Wall, or even Eternal Engine. And since the level is so short, it feels more packed. Sonic's always doing jumps, slide dashes, somersaults, and homing attacks, making the whole thing feel more action-packed compared to a long level where they often use more sparingly, like in Final Chase for example. And then, that missile segment is easily the best part. When you get there, a timer of 15 seconds starts and you have to quickly climb a metal road to grab one of the 2 handles on this missile before it gets launched. You can grab the normal one, which simply requires you to climb the metal road without pauses, and that's the one most people will grab in the first playthrough. But the real fun lies in grabbing the second handle, which is noticeably difficult. You have to jump near the rocket to do a homing attack towards the spring to take a small shortcut, and then when you get to the normal handle, you have to bypass it and instead do a homing attack on beetle robots, and quickly run on the metal road to do a glide dash and finally bounce to grab that handle that will give you more points. When I replayed the level to try and grab that handle specifically, it took me more than 20 tries to succeed. It works because it's a risk-reward factor. You can take a chance by getting more points with this risky handle if you know what to do, but they don't force you to get that one, and if you don't feel like it, you can easily choose the normal handle instead. And even then, even if the A rank for this level is notoriously hard to get, it's still not impossible to achieve it without even grabbing that extra handle, so it feels less unfair that way. That makes it way more fun. And then you fly while grabbing that handle on that missile until Sonic jumps from it and enters a giant tube to go back to the harbor. That final section involves some snowboarding in the tube, and once again, the fact that it has several boxes full of rings allows for way more player agency than if it was just an empty tube, fixing the problem of being repetitive that many straightforward sections in levels like Radical Highway had. Overall, Metal Harbor is a really fun level that feels action-packed and energetic, with various stunts and tricks you can perform, but that also has a length that's appropriate to its gameplay and enough player agency even in some of the most straightforward sections in this level. It's just that the one stage that I like even more.
Wow, it's so beautiful!
Yep, Final Rush, the final level in the hero story, and Sonic's final stage. To me, Final Rush is easily the best level in the game, and maybe the best level of any 3D Sonic games I played, even though I obviously haven't played every 3D Sonic game. This might seem contradictory, because this may be the hardest level in the entire game, and I criticize several levels for not being able to dose the difficulty properly, as they often fell into that same mental trap that because the level is supposed to be hard, you can put anything in it and it will be fair, which is simply not true. However, Final Rush may be hard, but it feels fair. The entire level is based on rail grinding, and it truly tests your skills to see if you're good at this mechanic. Now, I think it would have flown better if they put Pyramid Cave in the Dark story and put Skyrail in the Hero story, while making it take place in an icy mountain while keeping some of the pumpkin aesthetic to make for a good preparation for this level that you will necessarily play before Final Rush, since as it is now, you don't really get forced to interact with the rails a lot before this level, and it makes for a very brutal spike of difficulty. But this does not change the quality of this level, which is just amazing. Up until this point, many speed-based levels have alternated between straightforward speed phases with a lot of stunts, some more open parts encouraging exploration, and platforming phases that will test your skills. Final Rush manages to mix the best of both worlds with rail grinding phases that feel like a true roller coaster while also testing your skills. You really have to master the rail grinding mechanic to go through this level and get a good rank, as it is full of moments where you have to jump from one rail to another, cases where you get to stop grinding to do a homing attack on an enemy but that require a really good timing, parts that force you to do some rail switching, and so much more. It really feels like a true roller coaster to test how good you've gotten so far.
Speaking of which, no, he still hasn't forgiven whoever decided to remove Rock and Roller Coaster's rock music theme from the ride.
Therefore, you get to go fast and pull out some cool loop-de-loops and stunts, while also having to test your skills and jump from rail to rail in some sections, which can be really difficult. It's the best of both worlds, because you'll feel that roller coaster feeling, but you also won't get bored of straightaways like in other levels. Honestly, I really wish more levels took that approach, as some of them didn't get the S rank primarily because of this issue.
Yes, he's talking to you, Radical Highway.
But generally, the rails also work well and are programmed to be skill-based, meaning even your failures on this level feel fair as it will generally be your fault, while you can often lose in Final Chase only because of a glitch. Overall, Final Rush is easily the best level in Sonic Adventure 2, and honestly, this is how you test the player's skills with the hard level in the 8th game well. We are now done with ranking every level in the game, but before I end this video, I still wanted to do a small review of Sonic Adventure 2. And well, it's a really good game. Yep, it's not flawless, and we're gonna talk about some of those flaws now, notably the ones I glossed over when ranking the levels. First, the game isn't really polished enough.
This didn't seem to bother you when you played Pokemon Violet?
Well, that's where clear nuance comes. In today's games like Pokemon Violet, the glitches and technical issues are more funny visual problems. At worst, they can break the immersion, but they don't influence the gameplay. In contrast, Sonic Adventure 2's glitches are already way more problematic, because they actively make it unfairly harder to go through some levels. There are several types of glitches that can make you fail a level even when it's not your fault. First, it's more of a conception flaw than a glitch, but the developers decided to pull all actions aside from jumping on the B button. Due to this, it's not uncommon that you will get the wrong move on accident. This is more prevalent in speed stages, even though it can cause a lot of issues in treasure hunting stages too. Then, there's the homing attack issue. It's supposed to allow you to dash on a close enemy when aiming for them. However, it's very common that it ends up not seeing the target you want to aim for, or aim for an entirely different one. While the glitches don't get bad enough to really make most levels bad, they can cause inconveniences that can be really frustrating, as you will sometimes lose an A rank just on a glitch. Then, for some late game levels, they really didn't bother to make the difficulty feel fair. It's clear that they fell into the trap of thinking that because the level is at a point where you'd expect the game to get hard, they can put anything that's hard to go through and make it feel fair, even though it's obviously not as simple. However, this game also has a lot of qualities. First, many levels have really creative ideas. The darkness in Lost Colony, the snowboarding sections, the hourglass and sound pyramid levels, the beetle robots in headquarters, the gravity in Crazy Gadget, the atmosphere of Pumpkin Hill, or the way they handle the rails in the Final Rush. The game manages to renew itself throughout the adventure pretty well, even in levels that share the same theme like with Death Chamber and Headquarters, but that play completely differently in spite of sharing the same type of gameplay and theme. This idea of splitting the game into two stories make it really cool too, especially when you try to do the two stories in parallel, because you discover totally different perspective on the story depending on whether you play as the heroes or the villains. If you are curious about which story I prefer, well, I can't decide. On one hand, the hero story has higher peaks, and that's where most of the S tier levels are. But on the other hand, the Dark story is more consistent, as only like 3 levels from it are C tier or worse. Then, speaking about it, the story is really cool. I won't talk about it too much because I don't want to spoil it for people who've never played the game before, but despite incoherences that can somehow make it feel weird, it still has its share of epic high-stakes moments and emotional scenes.
Even though now it's better to just watch the third Sonic movie.
As for the game styles, well, I like them. I'd say my least favorite one is the mech shooting gameplay style, as many levels with that style can get redundant and honestly feel pretty samey by the end game, but there is a pocket full of good levels with the gameplay style. Despite some levels executing it poorly, I actually enjoyed the treasure hunting gameplay, as it has some really good ideas and the good levels with this gameplay show that it's more than possible to execute them well, with Pumpkin Hill in particular being a really amazing level. But my favorite game style is of course the speed style. Despite some inconvenient glitches, these levels are really fun, with a good balance between fun stunts and more intricate platforming based gameplay. Finally, before ending this video, I still wanted to talk about the Chao Garden. It's not relevant in my video since we're focusing on the levels, but it's still a good game mode nonetheless, and I thought it'd be a bummer not to talk about it a bit. This game mode consists in raising these little creatures called Chao, and honestly, to be more brief, it works really well. You have quite a lot of interactions to discover with them. It includes the stuff you can do or get in the normal levels well in this gameplay, and it's just really cute and relaxing to stop here between two normal action-packed stages. Overall, Sonic Adventure 2 is great, despite its shortcomings. I was hesitant to drag it down to the B tier due to some annoying issues and bad levels, but after careful consideration, I think it deserves an A tier. An amazing game that deserves its popularity in my opinion. Finally back at the hotel. This video is now over. Honestly, I really had lots of fun replaying the game for this video, and I thought it was cool finally talking about a Sonic game for a change. I think that at this point, you guys know that I'm more of a Mario fan. But as you saw, I also really enjoy Sonic games, and I'll be happy to do more videos about his games in the future, like maybe ranking every track in Sonic Racing Crossworlds. If you guys are interested, of course. Now, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.
Bye bye!